Very old Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast games use this technique called vertex colors, where they get the vertex of a model and they literally apply a color to the vertex, and the vertex will connect to the color of another vertex and it'll create a type of band of color and a smooth gradient that goes from one to another. This is Majora's Mask, Link, of course. Um, a lot of these characters where you see it just has like one broad color all across, this usually isn't a texture. This is usually vertex colors. And I wanted to talk about how to do that in Blockbench and how it's not exactly perfect. But first, I wanted to talk about like how this functions normally in a program that actually has this fucking feature. So here we are in Blender. Let's go over to the viewport shading tab. As you can see, it already has some of the vertex colors applied. It doesn't look the same as on the Nintendo 64 model that we saw because the resolution of the vertex color is different, and I bet the fall off is different as well. But to demonstrate, let's go to wireframe. So you see how it's dark here and it's influencing all the colors around it. That's because black has been applied to this particular vertex. If I got a different color, let's say I got a red, for example, a very bright red, and I put it here, look at that. Everything around it will take on that color and it'll shift over to green, which are the vertices around the red. I hope that makes sense. So let's say I wanted to make him like white on the bottom, red on the top. Let's get a less offensive red so I don't make my eyes bleed. Like a nice desaturated. There we go. Color that. No, something I want you to note is how easy this is in Blender. Because we're about to get how fucked it is in Blockbench, and how some things are almost impossible, pretty much. And I want white on the bottom, just like that. Okay, more or less. And what happens if I'm going to a different color? What happens if I wanted to stop there? Well, I have to adjust something called fall off, I think it was, if I did linear. No, it wasn't that. There was some setting you put here, but that's not the point of this fucking video. This video is to teach you about Blockbench vertex colors. This was relatively easy. And the best part about this is that it doesn't take up a texture. This is the only part that's textured. The arms, the eyes here. Hell, even the arms, honestly, could have been vertex textured if you wanted it to. You just need, because they only had a limited amount of polygons, this finger here, they couldn't put the geometry in to do the vertex colors for this finger like they could do for the hat. So it has to be a texture in order for them to get that type of effect. Likewise, for the shadow under the arm, if they want this to be a vertex color, then all of these vertices need to be right here, which would be a lot of extra geometry. And on top of that, it would kind of fuck with this shape, with this silhouette here. I think you understand. I think that makes sense. Vertex colors are colors on vertices, on vertices, and they don't take up a texture slot, and they don't use a draw call. They're just embedded into the fucking model, and it's fantastic. Before we go any further, I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to say that this is still being used. This isn't like some old technology that's no longer used anymore. We're still using vertex colors called Angelina. They have these very nice, beautiful low poly models, and they use a lot of vertex coloring and very specific settings on their fall off and their whatever the hell they're using to create these sharp lines and representations for shapes like eyebrows. The eyes, I think, is a separate plane, but you get my point. There's a lot of work you can do with this, and even if you want to do high poly, this is an artist called Polydachi, and this is super high poly, but you can see a lot of this color around the collar here, under the shirt, the thighs, to the socks. This is all vertex color. There's a texture on the skirt, but there's still vertex color after that. The technique still exists, and it's still very useful. So even if you don't have any texture at all, if you want to have a certain type of style, this is imperative for that. If you do have texture, you can still do it. It still makes sense to do. Okay, first I want to talk about like the normal way you go about vertex painting. Here's an air conditioner I made. This is I can't make this clear enough. This is really hacky what I'm about to show you. Okay, this isn't even fucking vertex coloring. It's just artwork. It's just art techniques to get around this issue that we have. So you have your texture right here. And we're going to talk about the size of the texture because that does matter for how you're going to do this. And we're going to create a new layer on the texture. If you don't have this window, you can right click and there's this button here called Enable Layers. And it'll show you this new panel with layers. So we're going to create a new layer here. I'm going to call this Shadow. Now the way this worked on old PlayStation models, for objects anyway, is that it's always dark at the bottom, going up towards the top. I don't think you can do a secondary color with the gradient and Blockbench, but we're going to get the gradient tool up here at the top. We're going to pick black or some type of dark color. And the laziest way we can do this is just grab the very bottom face and drag up. If it looks a bit dark, that's perfectly okay. That's one side. Then we're going to get this side, drag up. Okay. And it looks more or less equal. So if you just have it like this, it kind of looks fucked, right? It looks a little bit too dark. So we have to adjust the opacity down to 25 or so maybe. And there you go. That's your very light vertex color. If you want it at like 50, you can. Something you're noticing though, I'm sure, is that there's banding here, right? Because it's dependent on the pixels. So what happens if you don't want it to have these bands? What happens if you want it to be like more like a neat gradient? Well, you're gonna have to change the size of your texture. Let's say I go to 512 by 512. 512 to 512 scale. It's very dense all of a sudden. And we're going to do the exact same technique. We're not going to change anything else. We'll get a gradient tool, pick black, go to the bottom, drag up midway, the bottom, drag up midway, and look at that. It's a lot smoother. And of course, we change the layer opacity to 50. There you go, vertex color. Let's say you wanted to highlight. You just create another layer here. We're going to create a highlight layer. And we're going to get white instead of black this time. And we're just going to come down from the top. Oh wait, whoops. Pick a gradient tool, come down from the top. You can hold down Shift to make sure your gradient is straight and aligned. It's very difficult to see through the painting grid. Okay, there it is. If you want to make it a little bit more transparent, we can go to 50 again. And now we have a very subtle highlight at the top. So this is how it can work. This is how you can do vertex coloring in quotation marks. This works. And I use this for my game assets all the time. Not this resolution of vertex coloring, of course, but something similar. But here's the issue. If you want to do a complex model, like a character, remember how it was easy to color the vertices on Link on his hat? Well, I can't do that here. If I want to have that smooth gradient on this one face, then I would have to do a gradient here, here, and here, and here. It's not perfect. Let's say I want something that's coming from this corner. I have to do that, and then I have to do that kind of, and then I have to do this. And it's like, technically that works. Technically this is correct. What happens if your character is more complicated, huh? Let's go back to that picture. Do you really think you're going to be able to get this effect inside of blockbench? It's definitely doable. It's going to be difficult though. And more importantly, the vertex coloring is still a fucking texture. Remember, part of the advantage of using vertex coloring is that it's not going to use a draw call when you get into engine. It's very performant. It's very fast. But what we're doing here is we're basically baking a vertex color into the texture itself. It's still possible, and you can still export this all as one PNG, and it's going to be fine. It's going to work. And you can come back and modify it later. But I'm just pointing out here that what we're doing is very hacky, and you can't really get this with just blockbench alone right now. And so, Janice, if you're fucking listening to this, buddy, I need IKs, I need vertex colors. As long as you can give me those, my soul is yours, okay? Like, you don't want to know the things I'll fucking do for some vertex color, okay?